our Tuesday New Business Skills workshops, and we are in our second week with Charlie King and Charlie King Coaching, and we're going to be talking about goals. So I'm just going to let you take it away.
Thanks so much, Leslie. I'm curious, last week when we left, we started to talk a little bit about how goals have gone for folks in business in the past, and folks were sharing where they're at with their business, what their experience of, having goals in the past and how it's gone. And I asked folks to take a look at what kind of goals they would produce for themselves moving forward in their business. How many folks did that this past week? Okay. Who'd be willing to share what they saw for themselves?
So repeat the question, because I know I'm answering it right.
Okay. So the question is you took a look at creating some goals moving into the future based on what you saw last week. What did you see this week? What was different?
So one of the things I realized is that the goal that I set up for myself last week was something that Jason and I have been thinking about for a while, and I do believe it's a good idea. But it seemed, in retrospect, like examining it again, it was sort of more of the same, piling on more good ideas, try this, try this, try this. With what I kind of came to in the past week is getting more to some fundamentals of our business and creating a goal around a fundamental that is not going to have a big splashy visual effect to the outside world, but that it could really increase our understanding of our business. So that was what I came to.
Okay, so that's what you saw, and what did that lead to?
It led to realizing that the benefit that our business could get by committing to a very specific goal that was not the goal I came up with last week.
Okay, so...
And I'm happy to talk about that, but I don't know if right now is good.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that piece. Yeah, that actually is consistent with what we're going to talk about today. What we're actually going to talk about today is actually shifting the way or the lens through which we see our businesses. Very often we'll notice that we get into patterns. We all have patterns in our life, whether it's the way that we interact with our health and well-being or the way that we interact with our relationships. We do the same things in our business. We get into patterns about the way that we interact with our business, and we often take a look at whatever's next based on how it's gone in the past. And we're going to talk about what the relationship with the past is around that and take a look at a new way of taking a look into the future. Would you share with us what you saw last week? Feel free to share what you'd like and not what you wouldn't.
Well, I'm in a pretty significant transitional phase of my career right now, which is kind of one of those, I don't want to be crude, but or get off the pot modes. Right. And which at my point involves, you're talking about examining what you've been doing versus laying out a complete new pattern. So you said goal, time frame, I've given myself 1 month to either get a ton more work of my own or get a job, right? And so, and right now I'm looking for a job, but since it's not happening, then the goal is, instead of this, working on the goal of the big business with the 5 employees helping me, is just to totally refocus and actually expand what the services that I'm doing right now, which is just working for other professionals.
Got it.
But really expanding that, rather than just looking at it as, well, this is what you're doing right now because that's not working and that's not working, right? It's just make a business of what you're doing.
So it sounds like you really distinguished, it got really black. It almost feels like it got black and white.
Well, it's got to be.
Right.
Something's got to happen.
Right. And Leslie saw something about the way that she'd been doing it and got a chance to see another opportunity. Alice, did I see you raise your hand earlier?
Not for this.
Okay. Okay. Did anybody else see something from themselves, goals from the conversation we had last week? Okay. So, what did you, Leslie, you shared that your experience was that the way you've been choosing in the past is sort of bigger, better, and that's, like what's new, what's different, what can we create something different, and that you saw that there might be something else available.
Yeah, I think the pattern in the past was sort of like a new way to reach out, sort of outward facing.
Okay.
And And the new realization is more inward facing, that
Okay.
that there's something that we should commit to inward facing that could make a big difference.
Got it. So it's a shift of perspective for you. So a lot of, and there's an analogy they use about being a human being. And it's got to be one of my favorite analogies, and I apologize, some of you will have already heard it from me. The analogy that I love about being a human being is it's a little bit like you're driving a car down the street, looking in the rearview mirror. So there you are, you're behind the wheel, looking out the windshield, where you should be looking, and instead, you're looking in the rearview mirror. Because very often, how we define how we think of ourselves, what we think is possible, and what's next for us in our lives is based on who we've been, what we've done, what our education is, the state of our health and well-being, where our relationships have been, what our financial status has been, where we were born, where we live. It all defines how we can create our future. And if you're looking from there, what's predictable?
More of the same outcome.
More of the same. Who would be interested in shifting that conversation in this hour? Excellent. I saw 3 hands. Who would like it? Who's itching for a shift in the way that they see their business or what they're up to?
Let's work on Leslie's thing, because she's got the biggest thing happening right now. I mean, you put your hand up, right?
You got groundswell.
Well, I'm more interested in the process for getting to the goals than I am in the specific issue that I'm coming up with. So, I don't want to.
Got it. Well, here's what I'd like to ask to count on. For everyone who raised their hand and everyone who didn't, my invitation for you is, I'm going to work with Leslie. Look for you in your life about how this relates to what happens for you in your life, in your circumstances, whether it's personal or in your work. And take a look as we're going through it, because I'll ask you to share as we get to the end. So, are you willing to play?
Sure.
Okay. So tell me about thoughts, feelings about body sensations, about how it's going at Expats. Just a laundry list.
Well, that is scary.
Should we turn off the camera right now?
Well, it is very scary, and I guess I'm okay sort of being open about it, because co-working is a new industry, and I know that there are a lot of co-working places that are really struggling. So ours is, no different. We've been struggling for the past 2 years, and by struggling, meaning that we have, have not found revenue to exceed expenses.
So business is a little scary. It's a little scary. They're
Yeah.
struggling. What else?
So basically came to the end of one line, which is, we had a lease, and the lease was up after 2 years, and it turns out that, we figured out a few months back that we weren't likely going to be able to renew our lease. So what then? And, we've actually come up with an amazing opportunity for moving forward, which, is going to require some changes, but there was sort of an end of the line feeling to.
Okay, end of the line. So I'm going to invite you to take a look. We're going to try to make a list of probably between 10 and 20. So share with me, if you will, some thoughts, feelings, body sensations without the story. Because I totally love the story and I totally get it, as does everyone here. But the way that you interact with how it's going.
Wanting to make it better, find a solution, go home crying. A lot of tension with my partner, Jason. Having sort of different visions. On the trip, take you back to, sorry. It doesn't work for me to be the focus and then have to answer at the same time.
Right. So you notice you have different visions. Then what? What else? Sorry, not that one, but what else?
It's kind of a flip-flop, panic to excitement about a new vision.
Nice. And plus excitement, right? Okay.
There there's some freedom in being at the end of the line, because then you really do have permission, if not, you have the imperative to think differently.
Right?
There's a sense of disappointment, there's a sense of failure. Not enough hours in the day, a lot of flailing around. If you throw enough resources at it, you can fix the problem.
Right. Got it. How about two more? Can I take a swing?
Here.
How's your sense of overwhelm?
Oh, well, overwhelmed is, I'm almost always in overwhelm, so that's more of a state of being, but yes,
Well,
overwhelmed
that's
for
what we're
sure.
looking at. Sure. Okay, this is a great list. This is a great list. So, thanks. And I'm sure if we stuck with this, we could probably come up with 20 or 30 more. And there's not a distinction that they're like bad ones and good ones, and it's just like kind of what's in your space right now. So my invitation is taking a look at these, what I'd like to know is what strategies you use to overcome or compensate for this. So, what strategies do you use to overcome or compensate for it being scary?
Trying to be in control.
Trying to control it. What strategies do you use to overcome or compensate for struggling? Or the sense of struggle?
Well, sometimes escape.
How about reaching out for assistance, say kind of like what you're doing with the ambassador group a little bit?
Well, this is more about what her experience of it is. It's not like, this is, because she'll know, right? Like, this is her experience and what she'll know.
Okay.
What is they, your results may vary.
But it is something that she's actually doing, so I thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's true.
So is that it? So when you got a sense of struggling, you're like, I just go escape, I run out, or I leave early, or I come in late, or I go take an hour-long coffee break, or I do around on Facebook, or... It's not intended to be a big question.
I guess the one thing I do try to do when I'm struggling is I do try to work it out. I try to speak it with other people. So I'm looking for people to help me brainstorm, to kind of help me get clarity.
Speak it, brainstorm, got it. There's a little bit of, there's like trying to fix it, right? Like the sense of struggling and how do we?
Or trying to interpret it, trying to get some clarity, trying to get some direction.
Right. Yeah, so what strategies do you use to overcome or compensate feeling like you're at the end of the line? Red wine works well.
This is going to sound terrible, but I learned about people who live in their vans full time, like they don't have a home anymore. It's a choice to go homeless, and that's been my escape fantasy. Like if all else fails, I'm going to go get a white van and.
Nice. Excellent. So there's the van by the van. So is it planning your escape or is it planning your failure?
What's funny is I have really had an eye on beat-up buses all the time lately. I see them everywhere I go. It's kind of a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like there's a whole living room beside that beat-up bus.
Well, it's a way of calming myself down actually, because I remember decades ago when I first moved up to Seattle and I didn't have a known plan. I didn't have a job. I was going to live with my mom. Things were really dicey,
Right.
and so. It wasn't as scary at that time as it is now, but I said to myself, what's the worst that could happen? And I said, well, the worst that could happen is that I would not be able to make payments on my car, I'd lose my car, and I'd have to go get a job waiting tables. And as soon as I acknowledged kind of what that worst case scenario was, I could go forward.
Nice. So it's planning the what's next, it's your escape, and it sounds like it lifts the burden. So, great, so what strategy do you use to overcome or compensate trying to find the solution? Like, I've got to find the solution. So what strategy do you use to try to overcome feeling like that? like you have to find a solution, there's a solution to find.
Well, every now and then I can manage to just say, oh, well, what will be, you know, but it doesn't work very often.
Right. What will be, will be. What strategy do you use or to overcome or compensate for feeling the need to cry or cry?
I usually just indulge.
Or it might just be emotions, you just indulge.
Yeah, I figure if I'm feeling like crying, I probably need to cry. You know, that there's some loss that's, yeah, but,
There's actually a chemical change in the brain when you cry that makes you feel better. It actually changes the chemical composition in your brain.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, you know, it's what they always say, right? Like nothing a good cry can't fix. So what do you do to overcome or compensate for the sense of tension, feeling tension?
Drive Jason crazy?
Is that serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you drive him more crazy than you are, then you've won. I love that.
Well, I just want to let him share it, you know, so I dump it on him. I'm not, are we trying to say what's effective here, or are we just trying to?
No, it's what you do. It's what you do, right? And what do you use to compensate or what strategy do you use to compensate or overcome trying to make things better? I just want to make things better, I want to make it better, I want to make it better. I just want them to be better.
Probably the brainstorming, you know, just trying to look for options, strategizing.
And how about for the fact that you guys have different visions?
I like cats and dogs.
We don't overcome or compensate for it, we just fight about it. How about panic?
Well, that's kind of just another version of tension, right? So, you know, dive into my to-do list, try to,
Nice.
or the control side of things, you know, just try to write down all the loose cannon ideas that are going on in my head.
Yeah. So yeah, like go dive into the productivity. How can I make Kanban work for me even more? What's the newest, you know, where's my Monday
Well,
morning
part of it
check?
is just trying to lower the noise. So, you know, if I can just, if I'm in that sense of overwhelm, you know, that's now at panic mode or whatever, then I just try to acknowledge what are the things I'm, you know, are there day-to-day things that are kind of things that I can do something about. So I try to prioritize, I don't know.
Right, prioritize, yeah, right, it's more, right, it's all in the, you know, it's in audio engineering, they call it the signal to noise ratio. And, you know, you have to have a certain amount of signal, and if the noise gets too loud, you can't adjust for it or anything else. And it sounds like you're trying to keep the noise level on the line low.
Yeah.
So how do you, in this case it may not be overcome or compensate for, but how do you, in these moments, how do you, what do you do to create that? Like when you feel like there isn't that?
You mean, so, you have to tell me again, I'm not sure.
So, you said there's at the same time that there's a sense of panic, sometimes there's a sense of excitement, right? Like there's the other side of.
And maybe I could just join together the excitement and the freedom together, you know, those
Okay.
are kind of two,
So what do you do to either create that? What do you do to create that when you're not feeling it? Yeah. What do you do when you create that?
so I think that's, just sort of letting go of control.
Okay.
trusting
Okay.
that the right thing will happen, that the right people are gonna step in, that it's gonna have value, you know, that the entities for whom it has value.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Disappointment. How do you overcome or compensate for disappointment? Feeling of disappointment.
I overcome or compensate. I guess I try to remind myself that, you know, life's not fair. It's been a worthy experiment. We're not done yet. So we're sort of,
You know, it sounds like you get kind of circumspect about it. Okay. Rationalize or
maybe a little
circumspect.
spiritual, I don't know.
Okay. Rationalize. My writing's bad enough, but writing down low isn't gonna help. How about for the sense of failure?
You know, what can I learn from it? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's pretty similar to the disappointment piece.
Okay.
You know, the failure has sort of an added element of blame, I guess. And,
So you try and turn it to the, so it might have blame, but you try and turn it to the, what can I learn from this? What's the gift in this? What's the gold in this lesson?
Yeah.
How about for not enough hours in the day? Not enough hours in the day. How do you overcome or compensate for that?
Less sleep.
Less sleep. That's pretty simple. How about for the feeling of flailing?
That's when I guess I try to, sometimes I turn to the Kanban board and try to prioritize.
Must. And so we're back to do, control, prioritize.
Yeah, and sometimes I go to Jason and I just say, Jason, what am I supposed to be doing right now?
Nice. Or ask for support, right? Sounds
Yeah.
like ask Jason for support. What's next? How about for the sense of overwhelm? Is that back to more of this? To prioritize, control, ask for support.
Yeah, ask for support. I call my sister a lot.
Nice. Call sis. Totally get it, right? And this is great, thank you so much. Like, how great, how unbelievably great. And she knows exactly what she does. She knows how it shows up for her, and she knows what she does so as to adjust for the way that it's showing up for her. What's impossible from over here for expats? From your experience of expats, what's impossible over here, from over here?
The entire column.
From this experience, what's impossible? Or from over here?
What do you mean, what's impossible?
Yeah, I guess I'm not.
Yeah. What feels impossible or what is impossible?
Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about her experience. We're talking about Leslie's experience
Like
of her
what's
work.
missing?
No, actually, in this case, you know, we're all entrepreneurs, right? Nothing's impossible. However, in this structure, in this context that you created about how expats goes for you, there are going to be some things that are impossible. for you to experience from here?
Peace.
Yeah, peace is impossible.
Oh, I see.
What else is impossible?
Moving forward with clarity.
Uh-huh.
You're saying, given this list of actions and reactions, you're asking us to realize where it can't go.
Right? We're like, in the current context, so if we're gonna take a look at the world like, imagine this room and I suddenly handed you all a set of aviator sunglasses, some yellow tinted sunglasses, and I asked you to put them all on. What would happen to all the colors in the room? They'd turn a little bit yellow, right? They'd all have a different hue because of the yellow lens. Consider this is the set of sunglasses that Leslie's currently looking at expats through. This is the lens through which she's seeing expats. And through that, like the aviator sunglasses, she wouldn't be able to see this white board. She'd be seeing some version of a yellow board. It might be a light yellow board, it might be a darker yellow board, but still it would be yellow because it's the lens through which she's seeing expats. So all I'm distinguishing is what's the experience, what are we doing to manage it, to overcome or how do we manage it? Because we have great managing mechanisms for human beings. And from here, now that we've distinguished what's going on, what's impossible, what Leslie pointed out is peace. What are a few other things that are impossible for me?
I mean, you know, I do have letting go and trusting on that, so it's not technically, you know, impossible, I guess, but not on a regular, ongoing basis, right?
Okay, so it's the letting go and, I'm sorry, letting go and trusting. So is trust impossible from here? Like true trust, sitting in trust about how it's gonna go?
Well, considering yourself successful under the status quo.
That's true, that's very true. Feeling successful is impossible.
Feeling successful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Feeling success or just success?
Yeah.
How about,
Well, she's very successful, but she's not feeling it. I mean, it may not be financial success, but it's been like community-wide in terms of
right,
being a role model for the city and the community and setting new paradigms for the community. It's been very successful now, it just hasn't been a successful business model.
right, right. And again, all we're looking right now is at the distinction. You know, it's what's impossible as a way of being. Like, for you to experience for yourself. Like, what's impossible from here that if this was no longer in your space, you'd be able to experience this about your business?
Say that again, please.
I'm not sure I came verbatim. If this was all out of the way, what would be possible from her experience? What's possible?
So if I wasn't scared, if I wasn't overwhelmed, blah, 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 what would be possible?
Yeah, right. Okay,
In
that was
that
out of the way,
space.
what would be
What,
possible?
yeah, what's currently impossible, or what would be possible if this was no longer here?
What does this make impossible?
Is it peace, a sense of success, or a feeling of success? What else?
Well, I put freedom down there, but, you know, I guess that's sort of like a confined view of freedom, and, you know,
I love that. Did you just say a confined view of freedom? All right, I'm gonna just put freedom up here, okay? It's freedom, like a bird is free inside a cage.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, like freedom, right? Like with freedom, there's like a lightness, right? Like a lightness, like
Yeah.
it's freedom. Like however it goes is how it's gonna go.
Right, let's see.
How
Yeah.
about?
I don't feel a lot of lightness.
Yeah, yeah. I How's your sense of joy?
Well, that's not all the way missing. It's not filling me up all the time. But there are areas of my life where I do feel a lot of joy. I think that, my family relationships are actually, in some ways, the best they've ever been. And so I feel a lot of joy with my son and my sister and Jason. And and I'm very clear that's something that's really working for me right now.
What buckets aren't currently getting filled from you?
Professionally, I feel kind of depleted.
Okay, so what's,
And, just kind of insecure, like, if I weren't coming into expats every day and doing what I do, I don't know how I would.
so if it wasn't insecurity and that like you had the opposite of insecurity, what would it be? What's impossible if your experience is insecurity?
Well, confidence is coming to mind, but, I almost never lack a certain amount of confidence.
Well,
That's
is it confidence or bravado?
bravado. Well, I don't relate to bravado much.
Okay. Or like
More like an offering, hey, I've got what it takes to create what you need. I don't have
got it.
that.
So self-confidence. Self-confidence or?
I don't know. I mean, there's a
Or
certain level of
how about
confidence that
decision
always
making?
generate.
How's your decision making?
Decision making is tough. That's really
That's what I'm kind of getting from this conversation.
Yeah.
So it might be
clarity.
clarity. Nice. Yeah. It's almost like a piece of ownership too. Like, I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna say it. Like ownership, like big O, the big ownership. Like ownership about that this is this is the way it's going, and there's like you see where I'm looking?
Right. I mean, there's a sense right now that my whole life, with a few exceptions, is like like a house of cards or whatever. And so you're just sort of busy shoring up all these fragile elements.
Yeah.
And it's yeah.
Well, see, here's the beauty, right?
I want to say too that a lot of this, the feeling is there, so that is the truth. I mean, a lot of what I'm relating to right now is the way that August felt. So there are some things that have, stabilized and moved forward on, and the future is looking very different to me now than it did a couple weeks ago. But there's still a lot of fragileness and fear.
Thanks. Well, it's funny, right? Here's the thing, a context that set of aviator sunglasses we were talking about, all of us live with them. You can't not have one. The distinction is whether you choose one or you put one on and didn't know you've actually chosen one. So it's interesting. So Leslie has some experiences about how business goes for her. And this is what she does to overcome or compensate for an interpretation of how it feels, what your experience of it is. So it's an interpretation, that's your experience, that you go out and do something, actually do something in the world, take a physical activity. And by doing something, you actually reinforce the interpretation. For instance, if you have a sense of panic and you actually go out into the physical world where there is no panic in the world, right? It's just an interpretation. But what you do is you start doing lots of to-dos and you control and you're really prioritizing and you focus a lot of energy on that. What it does is it actually loops back to reinforce the fact that there's actually panic in the world because we actually have to do something to compensate for the fact that there's a sense of panic. So it's actually a feedback loop that feeds on itself and continually reinforces itself. That's why it's incredibly insidious. So this is what we're talking about. We're talking about how powerful a context is and the power of what's missing when you don't have the capacity to shift it to something different. So, you ready to shift it to something different? So, if these things are impossible, what would make the impossible possible? If you were going to take on a way of being, or a context, way of looking at the world, if you're going to take on a way of being that would make all of these possible, what would you take on?
Trust. Fun.
Could you restate the question? What would be possible if what?
What would make the impossible possible as a way of being? Trust, fun, what else?
Finding a way to make this business more viable than it currently is. And I think a lot of these things that you're looking at, it's sort of like saying that if she did something differently, it would improve the level of business, but there's some outside factors here that are causing the current situation that I don't think these folks have any control over.
And thanks for saying so. I don't have any intention of fixing the outside or the inside circumstances around the business. This is about shifting her, the way that she interacts with the business.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for saying so. Yeah, it's a little bit like perspective. It's like the lens through which you
I'm kind of
see.
trying to look at all this as, maybe I'm looking too big, as in trying to find a way to fix things, to create, to be able to obtain those things on that board.
Alice, thank you so much for saying so. The fix is beautiful because the fix is in here. If there's something broken, if the assumption is there's something broken, then we have to do something to fix it. The moment you start doing something to fix it, you have justified that there's actually something broken. Which then means we have to fix it. And if that doesn't work, we're still broken over here. We have to come up with a new way to fix it. And now we've got multiple loops justifying the fact that there's something broken. So it is just a matter of perspective, and it's a matter of opportunity. Like the one beautiful thing I know about my good friend Leslie is a woman can see possibility everywhere.
Sure.
In every challenge that this woman has faced in the 2 years she's been in business, I've never not seen her be able to see the bigger possibility, the bigger opportunity. So what we're really doing is looking at like, it's, when Thomas Edison built the light bulb, he had 1,000 failures before he found the combination of bulb and filament that wouldn't burn out immediately. And they said, didn't you feel like a failure right up through 999? And he said, no, I just found 999 ways not to do it. So it's all a matter of perspective. And what I'd like to assert is that it was the perspective that allowed somebody like that and allows extraordinary human beings like we all are to persevere, shift with the times, live in the moment, and follow their visions even when the results don't turn out the way they're expecting they would.
Okay.
And maybe another way I look at this is, what values did you come in to this game that we're playing? And, am I living up to those values? Or have I let a lot of these day-to-day grind type challenges overcome the values, which is not to say that the day-to-day grind challenges don't need to be dealt with, but if I come at them with an amber lens versus a blue lens, I'll see different solutions for them.
May I?
Yeah.
Just in service of time and,
Right.
and that's beautiful. Because you're talking about shifting the lens. What we're actually in the midst right now of, and what I'd love to continue with you, is actually shifting the lens. We're actually choosing a new context through which, and then we'll do something else beyond that too.
Mhm.
So you came up with trust and fund. Are any of them, any others?
Well, one that's always worked for me is curiosity.
Okay. So, how many of those three are fixes for this? Is trust a fix? If I just trust, then I can be with all this stuff.
Yeah, trust is a fix.
Okay, so got it. So if it's a fix, it's still right in this loop, right? All we're doing is justifying it. It's the big justification too. It's the big justification that there's something wrong. So trust is a fix. And they all may be fixes, and if that's the case, we'll continue, right? So how about fun?
I'm not so sure that fun is a fix. I think that's more of my, I think that's the ultimate lens I need to.
Okay, nice.
I mean, it might be a fix for my life or something, but not for current.
For right now, it's not showing up like a fix, and it's fine, right? And we get to choose contexts hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, depends how long your context lasts. Well, let's check in on curiosity. How about curiosity? Is curiosity a fix? If I just get curious about all this stuff, then it will be the access to what's next. Or if I just create fun around, right? It's the same question.
I don't think curiosity is as much a fix. I don't think getting curious is necessarily going to. I think in a way curiosity is more like why I got into it in the beginning.
Nice.
So
it gets back.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have no idea, but it's a good story. I can't wait to hear it someday. So what we have is fun doesn't feel like a fix. Curiosity doesn't feel like a fix. That's the first level. The next is taking a look at these two and see how they relate to what's impossible. Does fun make peace possible?
Yeah,
Okay.
at the moment you're experiencing fun, it's very, this is sort of inner peace always,
Yeah.
Does fun make the feeling of sense of success possible?
I just gotta say that when I'm having all these problems that are like this, and I have an opportunity for some fun, I have a hard time enjoying it without feeling guilty that I should, I feel guilty for feeling like something's fun when I got all this other bigger stuff going on, and it robs me of my opportunity for fun at the moment.
Yeah. Which is, it's a double down. Not only are you not having fun, but you're feeling bad about going to have fun.
Yeah.
Totally get it. Totally get it.
I think my version of fun is more of a lens that says, if I'm creating the possibility of fun, how does that change the situation I'm in? It's not to say, go play a board game or go watch Netflix, but
But it's change, it sounds like it's
it's like
change.
transforming the current perspective.
Right, so
Shifting it
and
here.
my question is it change is like outside the box? We're looking for there is no box. There is no box. So let's try curiosity. Let's take a look at that. Does curiosity make peace available?
Yeah.
Does curiosity make a sense of success possible?
Probably.
Okay. Does curiosity make freedom possible? Clarity?
Not sure.
Okay.
I mean, it takes some of the heaviness away, but, yeah, I don't know, I'd have to test that a little bit. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like, so, you were having some second thoughts about fun creating a feeling of success. Does fun make freedom available?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay. Clarity?
Not sure about clarity.
Okay. About ownership?
That's impossible, but, so I'm not sure I'm clear about ownership.
Okay. Well, that was my word. I apologize. It was, we should just take it out if you're not clear about it, because it was my word. It was more a sense of like the
That
owner, like just like owning it all and
sort of
not
like that
having
confidence.
have it not be a heaviness, but just like it's, I own it all and it's
Yeah,
all as how it's gonna be. Sorry.
Right.
Confidence is what really.
Yeah, I think there was
It
something
was
in
the
that.
alternative word to confidence.
Right, and
Yeah.
which might have been a fix on it to itself that I created.
Yeah, I think it does. I think curiosity
Okay,
works with ownership.
so,
Clarity, I'm not sure, I'm not getting there
Right.
yet. And the feeling of success, I'm not sure.
got it. So, I'm not sure any of these is that word. So, where's your, tell me about a time when you experienced freedom, true freedom. Hiking in the mountains, wandering the streets of Paris by yourself.
Living in DC for 3 weeks.
Living in DC.
I
What
mean,
else
it
was?
felt like I was living there, even though it was just, it was job related.
Got it. So it's like this sense of,
But, yeah.
what else was in the space? If it wasn't just freedom.
Well, in that particular time, I think there was a real transition going on, or transformation going on inside me. I wasn't even aware of it yet, but like when I got off the airplane coming back home, I just knew that I was moving on. Like I had somehow said goodbye to one life and was ready to start a new life. That there'd been some attachment to that old life, and, after that 3 weeks of kind of being on my own in DC, I just knew what I had to do.
So what's the way of being about that? Who are you being that allowed that to be present?
Well, in that case, it was kind of a physically getting away from, a life that I was attached to. It was sort of temporarily experiencing what life could be like, if I let go of that. It was just sort of amazing being in that city and being able to experience life, my hour to hour sort of being without a car, being able to get around without a car, that had a lot to do with it, having really inspirational places to visit, it just felt very expansive.
Okay. Expansive? Okay, so it's expansion. Expansion was the way of being? Would that be it?
Yeah,
Okay. Does expansion fit any of this?
yeah, it does.
The other word that came up for me, and it's my word, was a sense of wonder. It almost sounds like there was a sense of wonder in your storytelling. So expansion, does expansion allow for peace to be available?
Mm-hmm.
A sense of success?
Yeah,
Freedom?
definitely.
Okay. Clarity?
created clarity, yeah.
So here's the cool part, right? The same mechanism that messes with us doing this is the same mechanism we can learn from and use to empower this. So if what our go-to as human beings, especially people who are striving to learn more and grow and change and improve ourselves, is we're always looking to create some insight. I want to create some insight. The piece about it is, for us to grow a muscle about taking what we have seen for ourselves and bringing it into practice in our lives to build a muscle so we can access it, is around creating action that's in alignment with what we've seen. So, turn this sideways, cut Leslie out, and don't knock that down. You like that? Stay. So,
Don't breathe.
insight plus action equals results. Insight alone is interesting, but that's all it is, won't make a difference, won't change anything, and in an hour you'll be back where you were. Insight plus action equals results. So if you were going to take on expansion as a way of being and reflect it in your business, expats and how it goes, what actions would you take on today that would be a reflection of standing in a context of expansion? What would you take on? If it was just all expanding, and it was just that's what was so, and it was all moving parts, and it was new, and it was different, and it was just going to be perfect the way it was, what would you take on?
Maybe the question isn't what would you take on, but what would you let go of?
True, but that's on the insight standpoint, and that could be a bigger conversation. This is actually in service of, how do we anchor in what she saw for herself so as to move it forward? What do you see as an action you might take on that you wouldn't have taken on before this conversation?
Move to DC.
DC, here I come. They got one way tickets, baby.
That car.
JetBlue.
And drink more wine.
Work.
Right.
Well, there is a sense of shaking it all up big time, that creates that sense of expansion. So maybe in that respect, maybe I've done that. Not that I generated it, it was kind of handed to me, but taking on the job with Combi feels expansive.
Right. Nice. It sounds like it was handed to you. If you were going to take ownership of that and well, that's what I got handed, but here's what I'm going to do, what would that look like? Well, we were talking about, sorry, I apologize. I think I made it more complicated than it needs to be. You said you were handed something that was creating expansion and shaking things up. So if you were going to shake things up from expansion,
So something else besides that.
something else that is in service of creating all these things inside Officexpats.
Well, so one thing that has come up that I'm kind of so finding a whole new business model for doing what we're doing, which could also include finding a whole new space.
Right.
And I think even thinking about, a new space, even without going there necessarily, could create that, that expansive quality.
Nice. So what to reflect, right? Maybe looking into model or space, even if we're not going to take action on it, but it actually creates that sense of
Right,
expansion.
right.
Okay. So what could you take on this week that's in service of that?
Well, trying, so I guess I'm a little uncomfortable just speaking it.
I got it. Yeah, and I appreciate that. You know, and I really want to thank you for bringing forward the piece about reinforcing the perspective of expansion. Like, you may see something else. There may be something about, like, you know what? I know we've always kept the coffee mugs over here, but you know what? I'm putting them up on the shelf over here. Because for me, it shifts the way I see this place. It actually gives me a being about expansion, which makes all these things available, which doesn't have me living over here. And for some people, it's, you know, I'm going to start getting up earlier in the morning. For some people, it's, I'm going to move my workstation to a different place. So for some people, I'm going to drive a different route to school. But whatever it is that you can take on to reinforce this, and it's kind of insidious because you kind of have to keep reinventing it. But whatever you can take on to continue reinforcing this, because the end goal is clarity and freedom, a sense of success and peace, which gets us out of living in this space over here, which is the fixing the perception of what's wrong. And I really, you know, in closing, I want to thank you all. This is actually a very robust conversation to have. And generally, it's one that takes an hour and a half or 2 hours and break into groups and have longer conversations about it. I really want to thank you all for bringing some attention to it. If there are questions or folks who would like to learn more about like what context looks like or what it might look like for you, feel free to come and check with me anytime, and I'd love to sort of provide some insight or explore with you or answer any questions you have. Does anybody have a short question or something else? I apologize, it's just kind of in service of time that I want to honor everybody's time to get complete as close to 1 o'clock as possible. Yes, Ann?
Do you have any suggestions as to how one could keep from slipping back onto those charts there?
Well, when we talk about, there's a number of different ways, one of which is getting clear on the interpretation that you're living in. Frankly, you know, there's tools I use as a coach. I have a coach, and my coach is the one who helps me with this. Because when we're inside, have you ever had a conversation with somebody who, you know, you have a conversation with them and they share with you some interpretation about how their life's going, and it's just so clear to you, you're like, oh, it sounds like you're completely the effect of your ex-wife, or your job, or the way your financial situation is, or your children, and you can provide some insight, like, wow, I never saw that before. Often it's having a conversation outside of you. Because when we're inside our own head, all it is that the hamster wheel. I don't have a good answer for you, for me, I have tools that I provide for my clients. For me, I have a coach, and I have other coaches that I reach out to when I need support. I have even trained people in my life to work with me when this kind of thing comes up, so I can call them and go, you know, there's something going on. Can you pull that sheet out that I gave you about the thing, and can we go through it?
That's really true. I mean, both my sister and my friend Linda in Seattle have both kind of gone through some personal transformation stuff with me. And so, when we get into, a sense of powerlessness or whatever, we sometimes go to like a formal coaching, like let's walk through that again,
Nice.
And it really helps that we speak the same language.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. And, for me, it's when I see it. For me, I notice I have a dog brain. The one squirrel. Whatever can distract me fastest will get me. So it's really critical. I tell my coach to stop when I see an insight from myself, write it down, and then write down the actions. And then, I go back to my notes, my coach is like, you're gonna take on these actions this week because it's in service of that new context that you created. And I will forget that before I'm off the phone with them, I'll forget what I saw. And so writing it down for me makes a huge difference after I've seen something. Because otherwise, this is the thing that wants to creep in. Because it's so familiar and it's so comfortable and it so keeps us in our comfort zone. Because it's familiar.
Uncomfortable comfort zone.
Yeah. It's amazing when you get the distinction that we choose the lens through which we see the world. Thank you guys so much. Next week, bring a goal, and we will, for those of you who are doers and task-oriented, and they want lists, and they want stuff that gets them between here and there, next week is your week. Because next week we're going to take goals, we're going to break them down, we're going to put them in a smart context, we're going to make them specific, measurable, accountable, relevant, results-based in time. So bring your goals, and we will put a structure around creating them so you walk away from this class with actions and a structure for delivering on the goals for yourself personally or your business. And with that, I'm Charlie King.
All right.
Guys.
Thank you, Charlie.
I hope you don't mind if I erase this part. I'm sure you don't.
Yeah, no, I think that.
It's all Leslie's blood splattered.
Exactly.
It's like, it's my entire life right there. And just to normalize it, this is exactly the same conversation everybody goes through, and yet we live like we're the only one. Like, I'm the only one that suffers like this. It's part of being human. There's that two places, that one that we know ourselves of, our higher self, that place where we're really gifted in what we provide, and then there's that other one, the conversation that gets in the way, that tells us we're not worth anything, and everybody's got a conversation, and it's all just some version of the same conversation, and it's unique to each person. And the question is, have you ever heard that there's a great Native American analogy, is that there are two wolves that live inside you, one that is peaceful and plays in the forest, and one who is, full of light and a gift to the planet. And the other one is bares its teeth and is, evil and, all kinds of bad things. And the young native warrior comes to the elder and says, well, which wolf wins in the end? And the elder says, whichever one you feed, that will be the one that wins. So it's just, by distinguishing the two, you can choose which one you want.
So everything you just erased was my wolves.
That was the teeth bearing. That was that guy.
That was great, Charlie. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for